So I barely write code anymore, and it's becoming a problem. Whenever I get a new Jira ticket now, my usual routine is just to paste everything into AI and let it make sense of it for me. And look, on paper, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's kind of like a rubber duck, a sounding board, and maybe that's how you should actually use it. But it's everything that happens after that where it's starting to get worrying. I let it write the solution, I'll have a quick look, the test pass and it ships to staging. That's me done. A ticket that used to take days now takes hours. So why wouldn't I do that? That's exactly the problem. Here's how we actually got good in the first place. Senior developers didn't get good by being fast. We got good by struggling, like genuinely suffering sometimes, debugging impossible errors for hours, reading through some absolute mess of a code base left by someone who, clearly hated the future developer, Googling something on Stack Overflow and then spending ages figuring out how to actually fit it into what we were building. That was learning. All that friction, it built real intuition for why code behaves the way it does. Along the way, we made mistakes, so many mistakes, especially at the start. I made more errors than I can even remember when starting out, but every single one of those taught me something very real: how systems actually break, how to read an error properly, how to think through a problem when there's genuinely no easy answer. That's what makes a real developer, not knowing everything, knowing how to figure it out, because you've been lost before, but now you found your way back. AI takes all that away though. It removes the mistakes completely. If we're not making mistakes anymore, how are we actually going to learn anything? So here's where it gets a bit uncomfortable. If someone sat me down right now and asked me to walk through the code that I shipped last week in detail, I'd probably struggle. I would have to read the code and really go deep into understanding it, but I couldn't do it on the spot because I didn't really write it. I reviewed it, sure, and there's a massive difference between those two things. I can already feel it as well. The skills are going soft, not in a dramatic way, but just quietly. You only really notice it when you have to think through something properly from scratch and you realize it takes longer than it used to. The muscle just isn't what it used to be. And it's not just me. I've spoken to developers at other companies, people with 10, 15 years experience, and they're saying the same thing. Their companies have gone all in on AI and slowly they are feeling it too. But here's where it gets a bit interesting. So if senior developers are going to rely on AI, that would make them quite dangerous, right? Well, I think it's kind of the opposite. Junior developers have no baseline. They've never built something properly from scratch. They've never debugged a production issue, never felt what it's like for a bad architectural decision that comes back to bite them 6 months later. So when AI generates something that looks right, they genuinely have no way of knowing if it actually is. They can't spot the flaw straight away. They don't know what good looks like yet. They just trust it because it compiled and it worked, so that's good enough for them. Senior devs at least have the receipts. We've written this stuff before. We've been burnt enough times to know when something feels a bit off. That's instinct. That's been built through years of getting things wrong, and it actually saves you when AI gets it wrong. The real danger isn't seniors getting a bit lazy. It's the entire generation of junior devs who never built that instinct in the first place, who go from boot camp straight to some sort of AI autocomplete without ever going through the hard part. They'll never even know what they're really missing as well, and that's the scariest part. So where does this actually end? If AI is writing the code, it's running the tests, it's handling the deployments, what are senior developers actually doing then? At that point, we're just orchestrating rather than creating stuff, which sounds fine until you ask, how do I grow from here? What comes after tech lead when everything below has been automated away? And what happens to juniors who never get the chance to build what we built? Look, I'm not saying don't use AI. That ship, as far as I'm concerned, has sailed, and it's a brilliant tool when you use it right, but use it for the boring stuff, the boilerplate, the repetitive patterns, test data, that's fine. But the architecture, the debugging, the actual hard thinking, try and do that yourself deliberately, even if AI can do it faster, especially when AI can do it faster. Let yourself make mistakes again. That's not being slow, that's how you stay sharp, because developers who will still be relevant in 10 years time aren't going to be the fastest ones. They're going to be the ones that never stop thinking for themselves and never stop learning from getting it wrong. That muscle only stays strong if you actually use it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.